Hello, bakers. My name is Mark Floerke. I'm the Bakerpedia Baked in Science podcast host, and welcome to Thursday Thoughts. On this Thursday, I'd like to build on the seminar, the Clean Label and Healthy seminar this morning, with some thoughts about regulations and healthy baking or making healthy food. There is such a myriad of things to be concerned with that you often want to just sort of focus on what it is you want to convey or achieve, and then try to just focus on that specific regulation of sorts. And the reason I bring this up is not only because of the wonderful seminar this morning, which gave us a lot of clean label insight and things like that, is that I've also been having some conversations on Facebook, on the baking science, the baking industry professionals channel, and also with other colleagues from the Research Chef Association on Facebook. And there we've been talking about one of the things, for example, is ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid is commonly used as a clean label type of preservative, right? The interesting thing is that while in the US, all foods fall under the Food and Drug Administration's good manufacturing practices. In other words, why would you put more than what really is necessary, right, to make it work? In some countries, it's not the same. In Canada, for example, with most foods, it is good manufacturing practices. But when it comes to baked goods, it's limited to 200 parts per million on the flour weight, even on unstandardized baked goods. And I've searched the internet all over, and under the Canadian Food Inspection Agency website, which is kind of like the US equivalent of the Canadian equivalent of the FDA, and I can't find why. It just says that that is the limitation. And so sometimes it takes a lot of digging, or to be aware, if you're making something in the US with a clean label and you have more than 200 parts per million of ascorbic acid, will you meet the labeling limitations of other countries? So you want to make sure you look into those things, right? Other things are, we still have the plant protein craze. Everybody is loving plant protein. There is the new term that has been around for a couple of years now, and I remember the first time I heard it was from a gentleman, a PhD scientist out of Israel, who developed a soy-based meat alternative plant protein. And there's a lot of what today are flexitarians, which means is like, they just want to not eat meat once in a while or have some variability, feel like they're doing something good for the environment, and so on. So protein is important, of course, in a diet. So if you become vegan or vegetarian, for whatever your reasonings are for that, you want to also ensure that you get sufficient protein in your diet. So that you'll see a lot of things that are being promoted these days. That I saw a package the other day at the store. It said it has 14 grams of protein per serving. Well, you want to be careful with those statements because in the US, which most countries outside of the European Union use the US FDA as a lot as their guide for regulations, is that when you make a front of pack claim, meaning that you're saying that there's X amount of protein, or if you're saying it's high in protein or a good source of protein or things like that, the requirements to meet that change slightly. And it's ever so subtle, buried deep in the regulations. And those of us who have worked a lot with proteins are familiar with the term that is thrown around a lot, and it's PDACS. And everybody says, oh, you got to have the PDACS. You got to meet the PDACS. Does it meet PDACS, right? And well, what does this mean? And PDACS is an acronym which means protein digestibility corrected amino acid score. So what the heck is that? It's a big mouthful, right? But the thing is that what this is that proteins are made up of amino acids. There's a carboxyl group, and there's certain types of amino acids attached to that attached to that. And depending on how they are combined and arranged on this carboxyl group is how well we are able to digest them. So the one that we can get the most protein from is egg albumin. Egg albumin is 1 gram of protein is 1 gram of protein. So the PDACS is 1 or 100%, if you will, right? Then if you look down the next things that we use, we talk about other animal proteins such as whey. And whey isolates will be about 0.8 to 0.85. So in other words, 1 gram of whey protein will be 0.85 grams of digestible protein. Other plant proteins that are very high are soy and pea. Pea proteins have become very popular. They mostly because they've cracked the nut on getting rid of some of the off flavors, right? And so then why do I bring this all up? Well, so that if you're using 14 grams of pea protein, you're not getting 14 grams of protein. You have to multiply that by 0.85. So really, you have to use more than 14 grams to achieve that 14-gram result. Now, if we look at something that is baked goods, our main ingredient in baked goods is wheat flour. And wheat flour, on average, has about 14% protein. So there, the problem is that wheat protein, gluten, is only 0.4 on the PDACS scale. So that makes it very difficult to make a protein-sourced baked good where you're relying a lot on wheat protein as the source of protein. So because you won't be able to meet that front of pack claim as it is written in the regulations. Now, the average consumer doesn't understand this, granted, but that is what the regulations are, right? One last one I wanted to talk about a little bit as thoughts for healthy things is that is starting to come back up in the news a lot more today, is in 2002, scientists discovered that a chemical compound that potentially has the risk of causing cancer or promoting cancer that is often produced during cooking or baking. And this is called acrylamide. And that has started to make the foreground in the news again today. And so I've been having a conversation with some friends about some grilling practices and things like that, because when you severely char meat proteins, you produce some acrylamide. Acrylamide is produced by amino acids together with sugars or starches, carbohydrates, being charred, being, in other words, baked beyond brown or cooked beyond brown. And that charring is what produces acrylamides. It is said that the levels of acrylamide in grilled meats and in dairy products is relatively low and tends to be higher in baked goods. Having said that, it's higher in baked goods where the charring occurs, where the very dark coloring beyond the light caramel colors. So that's something to be aware of too, in some of these high sugary items that have dairy and wheat in it, that those proteins reacting with the sugar, if you're going beyond just a nice golden brown and you get these bits that are burnt or very dark, those are things that may be viewed as sources for acrylamide. It's in the news in Europe a lot more lately right now than it is in North America. But a lot of times with these things, with these health issues, what happens in Europe 5 or 10 years later, we got it here as well, right? So it's something to be aware of. And so I hope that will help you in your zeal and path to healthy baking. And hope you all have a wonderful Thursday. And happy baking out there, everyone. Take care. And those are your Thursday thoughts.